Hey guys, Shadowz here, welcome back to another Gears 5 video. Today we are going to be discussing the Hivebusters DLC collectibles, bringing you guys my all collectibles location guide tutorial in Gears 5. The Gears 5 Hivebusters campaign DLC is a 3-hour long origin story of Team Scorpio as Lonnie, Kaliso, Jeremiah, Keegan and Leslie Mack are recruited on a suicidal mission by Colonel Victor Hoffman to enter the heart of a swarm hive to try and discover a new effective method for fighting back the ever-growing swarm enemy. Alongside new characters in Hannah Cole and Tak, as well as the new enemy boss the Wakatu, the Gears 5 Hivebusters Story DLC also includes brand new cinematic cutscenes, 16 achievements, upgradable class-based abilities, but most importantly for this video, 23 new collectibles adding even more to the story and lore of the Gears of War franchise. Without further ado, this is my guide tutorial for the locations of all of the collectibles within the Gears 5 Hivebusters DLC. The Hivebusters' first collectible is Lieutenant Kristen Navarro's Cog Tags. Once Team Scorpio reunite after individually parachuting onto the island of Bahanu and begin making their way to the beacon, you'll come across the unfortunate demise of the Condor pilot hanging from the vines of the jungle itself, making the ultimate sacrifice that ex-Onyx guard Keegan remembers all too well. Dropping down into the swampy waters below, the Cog Tags can be found blended in with the environment itself, sitting atop the fallen tree. For the next collectible, it is the Kaliso family photograph. Moving further into the jungle, Team Scorpio will come across the fallen crash site of the Condor. Just before re-entering the mountain range itself, there will be a perch overlooking the wreckage, where the photograph can be openly spotted next to the dismantled DB Shepherd. Next up is the Outsider Accolade coin. Arriving at the Condor crash site, it is set ablaze with fire and destruction with two pathways to take. You'll want to stick to the right side, it's just around the corner on the cliffside, next to the broken DB pods, will be the coin that was given to Mac for his delivery driving abilities back in his hometown of Breville. For the next collectible, it is the Onyx Guard helmet. Attempting to get to the Condor's radio inside the cockpit, Team Scorpio will come into view of the ocean and Bahanu's coastline. Taking a right following the main objective, you'll want to look through the DB parts and weaponry just scattered all across the floor. The infamous classic Onyx Guard helmet can be found in the sandy rocky terrain, being the final collectible in Chapter 1. Moving on to Chapter 2, the first collectible arriving at the Cog Facility Sanctum is the Sanctum Citizen Intake Form. Shortly after, Sergeant Jeremiah Keegan enters his credentials into activating the huge round door leading inside to the entrance of the facility. There will be a locker room and weapon cache on the right side, where the form is lying on the grated flooring. Next up is the Missive report to Chairman Prescott. As Team Scorpio fight back several waves of DBs, there will be a section that feels very familiar to the escape hives. A pipe will burst out into flames, awakening the rejects standing in dormant. After clearing the way, there are several apartment rooms on the left side, with one of them being open that you'll want to head into. The report paper can be found in the bedroom sitting inside the storage unit. For the next collectible, it is the Locust burial report. Down one level, there will be a locked door on the right side that Team Scorpio will need to open with the button on the other side. However, you want to ignore that for now, as there will be a fixable panel that Mac can actually get to work on, which will activate a new interactive entrance for a new apartment, containing the report paper on the table of the living area. Next up is the Hydroponics Handbook collectible. Lani Kaliso, being the smallest of the squad, is able to squeeze herself through the smaller gaps in the door, getting it open for Mac and Keegan. There will be a green room on the very far left in this section that can be accessed by, again, Mac fixing the fuse panel for the entrance. Inside there are a few rejects that can be easily stealthily executed. The handbook can be found on top of the box in the corner at the back. For the next collectible, it is the Sovereign Directive of Sanctum. Mac, Lani and Keegan working together to get the door open to the next section. The first signs of life will appear as several swarm enemies and pods are scattered across this room, either executing or just going out all guns blazing. The commissioning order is inside the small control room in the middle, on top of the cabinet in plain sight. Next up is the Sanctum Welcom Brochure, a collectible quite easily missed if you are just following the main objective and fighting back against the swarm enemy. Team Scorpio will enter upon a room that has activated its ice-cooled generators to try and control the temperature, which by the way is very useful as a weapon against the enemy swarm creatures. A flock of leeches will fly in from the pipe, shortly followed by a swarm pouncer, opening up a new accessible area. Inside where the swarm pouncer just spawned from in the back near the glass windows, the brochure collectible can be found left behind for over 25 years now, with a promise of VIP paradise that never actually happened. The final collectible of Chapter 2 is the Map of Sanctum. Getting ahead of themselves, Team Scorpio trying to walk across a broken pathway will fall an entire floor to only find themselves right smack in the front of a swarm carrier that will release a barrage of juvies, creating a very chaotic mini boss fight, especially on the higher difficulties. After defeating the Swarm Carrier and emerging waves of Juvies, Team Scorpio will need to activate the door by Keegan interacting with a terminal on the right side. You'll want to take a sharp left onto the catwalk area, as around the corner pinned to the wall is the map that can be missed quite easily if you're just blindly walking through the doors. Chapter 3 sees Team Scorpio using the Door of Sanctum as a makeshift boat, floating down a river of volcanic lava, meaning there aren't any collectibles to find right here, so we move forward straight into Chapter 4. The first collectible in Chapter 4 is Eiko's letter. With Lani Kaliso alongside Team Scorpio and the addition to the squad Hannah Cole do return to her Weilehan ancestral homeland, you'll walk on over a drawbridge where the main hall will come into view. While the game wants you to take a left right here, you actually want to head right up the stairs and into the building, where inside the workshop right next to the bones itself on the desk will be the Islander's letter. Next up is the Fearsome Mask, being one of my favourite collectibles in the Hivebusters DLC, being a huge tie-in between the cousins Lani and Ty Kaliso. Immediately turning around from the previous collectible, now continuing on to the objective mark path, Team Scorpio will enter a building where Keegan will ask Hannah if she was related to the coal train. Again, the game will want you to go through the main door on the right side, but just before you do, you want to take a left, as on the other side of this wall right here will be the mask resting on a table. For the next collectible, it is the Weilehan Incantation. Going through the double doors right after the mask of Ty Kaliso, there will be a closer, better view of the main hall where the music is playing from. There are multiple routes to take right here, but the one that you want to stick to is on the left side, passing at several boathouses before you do come across an open village hut that has a few big pots outside. The Spirit Walk booklet can then be found in the center of the room on the table. Next up is the Carved Canoe collectible. Once defeating the onslaught of Swarm drones led by a Swarm Scion, there will be a very noticeable Swarm Snatcher that has been killed by the villagers using spears before. There will be a door to the left of that Team Scorpio needs to enter, as the Carved Canoe can be spotted next to the chair right in front of you. For the next collectible, it is the Spirit Walk carving. Going through the psychological effects from the gathered Wakatu feathers and defeating a menacing Swarm Warden, Team Scorpio will enter through the back doorway to a stunning backdrop scenery of the pouring volcano, but unfortunately just way too late to save the villagers from undergoing the podded swarm processing. Instead of heading forward to seek revenge on the lurking swarm enemies nearby, you want to go off route by taking a right here, all the way up to the Weilehan statue where the bone can be seen just in front of it. The last collectible of Chapter 4 is the Fear Amulet. During Team Scorpio's clearing the village of any swarm they do come across, you will enter a workshop with an almighty silverback waiting to be fixed up and ready to be used by Mac. The amulet can be found on the desk just to the right of the silverback itself. Chapter 5 actually only includes just one collectible, being the Melted Swarm Skull, while most of Chapter 5 is spent surfing down the lava tubes created by the Swarm to travel back and forth from the Sanctum Hive on Bahanu to the other regions of the South Islands. The collectible itself is available much later on towards the ending of the chapter, after a vicious encounter with the Wakatu creature. After Mac, Lani and Keegan have to cut themselves free from Tax King Raven helicopter, you'll come across the acidic remains of a few different swarm that stood absolutely no chance against the Wakatu. Just to the left of the swarm, a carrier that has been melted from the inside out. The swarm skull is in the pool of acid between the two Juvies. Finally, moving into the last chapter of the Hivebusters DLC, the first collectible of Chapter 6 is the Weilehan Prayer Bowl. Re-entering the ritual room on Bahanu and Lani Kaliso activating the incense, just like her ancestral family before her, it will reveal a cleared pathway through the corridor of feathers. You'll want to turn it to the left though, as the bowl will be sitting on a miniature statue. For the next collectible, it is the Weilehan Awake Totem. Team Scorpio will come across a Wakatu-inspired wood carving structure that Lani will recognize. Just behind it, in the tomb-like cave with the gigantic statue, is the Wake Totem placed in the center. Next up is the Silver Era Relic. Hunting down the nest of the Wakatu, Team Scorpio will come across an amazing scenic view of a giant tree surrounded by forests and mountain ranges under a cloudy blue sky. Heading down the main pathway, you'll pass through a door of vines into the deserted ruins. There will be a breaker mace leaning against the wall on the left side, just before the silver axe can be found wedged into the tree. This is one of the very easily missed collectibles in the Hivebusters DLC that you want to make sure that you do grab just before you do reach the next checkpoint. For the next collectible, it is the Message to Hoffman Data Disc. Wandering into the forest of Bahanu, getting closer to the Wakatu, Team Scorpio will come across the down at Cog Vulture and under attack by several waves of DBs and mainly trackers. Entering the opening bay of the Cog Vulture just before turning left to more oncoming enemy DBs with M-bars, the data disc is snuck away, secretly hidden inside the weapons case. The last and final collectible in the Gears 5 Hivebusters DLC is Graye's Journal. After exiting the destroyed Cog Vulture, Team Scorpio will pass through an interactive wall of vines, then an engine and wing of the aircraft, and instead of going left like most players naturally will, you'll want to turn right, as on the grassy floor near the rock side will be the book journal and the completion of all of the collectibles in the Hivebusters DLC. Please make sure to leave me a comment down below telling me what you think. What is your guys' opinion on the brand new DLC collectibles, and do you guys have any personal favourites? For me personally, it has to be the Onyx guard helmet and the Fearsome Mask because of their connections and ties to the old characters of the past games. But in general, it was just amazing to see new collectibles being added to Gears 5, simply because TC have done a great job expanding upon the Gears of War lore. So there you have it guys, that was my full guide tutorial on the locations of all of the new collectibles in the Gears 5 Hivebusters DLC. Now if you guys are wondering, there is still so much more Gears of War content to be made and coming. With this release of a new Gears of War campaign story DLC, I want to use the opportunity to dive deep into the lore of the Gears universe, explaining everything that has happened so far in both Gears 4 and Gears 5. Giving us an opportunity to discuss and explore what comes next for not only Team Scorpio, but Delta, the Cog, the Swarm, the return of the Locust, and so much more going into a Gear 6 and beyond. I hope you guys are as excited as I am, so expect that video content very soon indeed. Give the video a thumbs up and share if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, I shall see you in the next one.